name is Jimmy Ford, and I'm here today to talk about the Rogers Dynasonic. What I'd like to do is I'd like to, dispel the myth, take some of the mystery out of how to set up a Rogers Dynasonic snare. Now, I've noticed I went on eBay a few times, and of course, when you go to eBay, you can find anything from soup to nuts. So I typed in Rogers drums, and to my surprise is that I found a lot of Rogers Dynasonic drums, both metal and the wood, up for sales. As you know, the wood Dynasonics, the original ones from back in the 60s, are astronomical in price. However, the metal versions of the Dynasonic are pretty common. They're going anywhere from $200 all the way to $800, if you will. So I found a lot of the metal versions on eBay. And what I found out is that a lot of guys who once owned these drums, for some reason, they have a hard time setting them up. And it really is not that hard. What I found on eBay is a lot of these sellers who had these drums, who want to sell them, I think they get pretty frustrated because they can't get a good sound out of the drum. So I'm here today to, help those who are having a hard time or struggling with getting a good sound out of their Rogers Dynasonic snare drum. Okay. Getting back to the eBay thing, what I found out is that when you look at some of the drums, some of them are fully intact, some of them are just shells where the parts have been picked off of. Some of them are intact, but the thing of it is that what's missing is the snare frame is missing. So what they wind up doing, trying to get a better sound out of the drum or try to improve the drum, is that they just put a regular set of snare wires on it. And that's not what this drum is all about. Today, you can actually get replacement parts for those Rogers snare drums. You can get replacement parts such as the snare frame. You can get the snare wires. You can even get some of the lugs. You can now get these lugs. You can get the bread and butter style lugs, and also you can get the beaver style lugs, which is a later model on the Rogers drums. What I found out when I purchased the replacement wires for the Dynasonic snare frame, I noticed that the snare coils is a finer gauge. So with that, it gives you more sensitivity, the drum becomes more crisp, the sound becomes more defined, it's sensitive. So they're doing a really good thing bringing these parts back from the Rogers Drum Company. And they are now making wooden Dynasonics now. And they're great drums, they're really great drums. So I'll take you through how to set up one of these Rogers Dynasonic drums. This is I call this a Fordasonic, and I wanted to build my own. So what I did was solid maple shell, and then I went ahead and purchased the bottom hoop to accommodate for the snare frame. So when you disengage the snares, so this way when you have a timbali effect on the drum, the snare is fully dropped down. And then you engage again. So I made one of these, and I have to say it came out really, really good. I'm very pleased with this drum. Okay. Now, a little history about this drum. And these are kind of hard to find. This is a 6.5 by 14 Rogers Dynasonic. Now, I have a little story for you guys to tell you. This drum was given to me by a very good friend of mine who is a middle school band director. And the end of the year at school, he found one of these. He was cleaning out of his closet, and he found one of these, and he called me up. He says, "Hey, I have an old Rogers 6.5 by 14 Dynasonic snare. Would you like to have it?" I said, "Yeah, bring it on. I'd love to have it." So he gave it to me, but it didn't look like this. It was in pretty rough condition. So what I had to do was I took the drum, the actual drum shell, and the lugs, and I took it to my neighborhood plater. And of course, this drum was built in the 70s. So most of you guys out there who know your Rogers drums, this had the big R on it. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm really not sure about the makeup of the shell. From what I was told, it's brass, So therefore, it's brass. I know that they made steel shells, but I'm pretty sure this is brass. So this is chrome over brass. It had the big R on it, which was basically just a big sticker. So of course I peeled it off, and where you see the air vent is where that big R, Rogers R, was on this side of the drum. So I peeled off the sticker and I took it to my plater, and I told my plater, I said, go ahead, do your thing, strip, dip, chrome, polish, and this is the drum. So this is a 6.5 by 14 Rogers Dynasonic. And again, I had to get some replacement parts, which you can get. You can get the bottom snare side hoop. And this is an older frame that I had years past, another eBay find that I collected. And so it works just as well. And I went ahead and got the Rogers replacement snares. It makes a huge difference. Nothing against the other brands, but I find that the reproductions of the replacement Rogers snares work great, because again, the coil, the metal, the gauge of the coil is a lot finer. So it gives you a really nice, snappy, crisp, defined sound. Lots of sensitivity. Great, great, great thing that they did from Rogers, and I'm glad that they did that. It's great for those of you who have these drums. Now, let me take you through this. Okay, so this is the snare frame. These are the snare wires. Well, if you flip this snare frame over, there are 2 mounting screws on either side, okay? So basically what you're going to do is you're going to flip this over, and you're going to mount your snares to the frame. There are 2 screws on either side. So what you do is you're just going to apply your snares to the frame, and take your time doing this. You know, don't rush through this. Take your time, and then carefully replace the screws where these 2 holes are. There's one here and there's one on this side, and carefully just tighten. Make sure that the snares are snug when you screw them onto the frame. Make sure they're snug, okay? Not too tight, but snug, so they won't loosen. Then, when you put your heads on, what you want to do is you want to make sure when you put the snare frame on the snare head is that you want it to be even from side to side. So when you go ahead and disengage the snare wires, you don't want one side being too far to the right or too far to the left, because you won't get that full sound. Okay, let me explain to you about this screw here. This screw here is to tighten or loosen the snare wires. So what it does, when you tighten it, it stretches the snare wires. From my experience, I keep this not really tight, but taut, snug, okay? When you have, before you put the frame on the drum, tighten the snares first, okay? Don't over tighten them, but tighten them finger tight. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your index finger and you're going to strum the snare coils like a guitar, and you should get like a slight pitch from the snare coils, okay? When you got that going, then just basically what you're going to do with the drum upside down is that you're going to take your snare frame and make sure it's even on top of the snare head, okay? Then you take the snare cord like this, right? And you just put it through the holes. Make sure it's even. Take your time with this. Don't rush through it, okay? Take your time. And then what you're going to do is put the snare cord through this part of the frame, and then you do it to the opposite side, like so, okay? Then what you're going to do, like normal snare drum, you're going to take your cord and carefully thread it through the snare side, tighten down the screws with a really good screwdriver. Get yourself some good tools, okay? This is a Stanley, whatever it is, flathead screwdriver. It's got a nice blade on it, right? They come in different sizes. And then what you're going to do is once you feed the cord through the snare side, the throw-off side, feed it through, and then just kind of finger tighten it down, okay? Because you want to make some adjustments so you can move the snare frame to the left or to the right, so you can pull it so you can even it up. And you can see that, from the edge of the snare coil, you want to make sure that it's even from end to end, okay? Then you take your other side, which is the butt side, and you thread your cord thusly, okay? Then you snug that up. And once you get it snugged up, you're able to kind of slightly maneuver it, move it, and then once you have it even on both sides, then tighten one side, tighten the other. It's like going around like when you're changing a tire. You know, when you the lug nuts, that's how you want to do this. Because if one side's too tight and you want to tighten up the other side, you may strip out the screws in the mount. So you don't want to do that. So just one, and you want to evenly tighten this down. Okay, and then the same thing with the snare throw off. Okay, so you got your snares on, right? And basically, this is your throw. This is your tightening screw, if you will, to tension the snares. You shouldn't have the snares too tight up against the bottom head because it'll choke the sound of the drum. So basically what you want to do is you want this snare frame to kiss the snare side head. And that's all there is to it. That's it. So let me talk to you about tuning the drum heads for the Dynasonic. Okay, what I was told by the great Roy Burns is that how he would tune his Dynasonic, or tension the Dynasonic, is that he would always have the snare drum side head tight. Okay, not excruciating tight, not over tightened, but tight. And then how do you test that? You take your index finger and you depress slightly into the drum head. And if it has just a little give, that's good. If you want to tweak it a little more, just give it maybe a quarter turn each all the way around the drum, test it again, and that's it. Now, what he told me about tuning the batter side head, the top side head, usually medium up, okay? And that's where you get the feel of the drum. If you feel that the drum is too loose, just give it a couple more turns around the drum evenly, quarter turns each at each tension rod. And if those of you who are real anal about, you know, getting the pitches all, you know, correct all the way around the drum, you can do that. You know, you take your stick and that one's a little high. It's a brand new head. This is the Aquarian Martin Vintage head. It's like a calf version, really great with brushes. So with that, bottom head tight, top head medium up. And that's all there is to it. And just remember, these are great drums. A lot of guys who own these drums, you know, they get frustrated because they don't know how to set them up. And I totally get it. You just have to take your time, set them up right, and these are wonderful, wonderful drums. Wonderful sounding instruments. So with that, I will demo what the 6.5 and the 5. This is a 5x14 Dynasonic. This one is from the mid to late 60s. And this is a 5 line. They used to have the 7 line. Don't ask me what 7 line means. The earlier drums had 7 line. This is a 5 line from mid to late 60s. Chrome over brass. Great drum. And what I did with this particular drum is, this is one of the original snare side hoops for this drum. But what I did was I put a stick chopper hoop where you now can get these from Drum Factory Direct. And what I find with the stick chopper hoops, the batter side hoops, is I find that it opens the drum up a lot more. For some reason, it just did. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to demo each one of these drums for you. And this is what it sounds like. So let me put this back on the stand. Like that. Okay? Now, as I'm putting these drums back on the snare stand, take notice that a lot of the modern snare stands, their baskets are somewhat on the shallow side, that basket, okay? So just be mindful because when you disengage the snare wires, you want them to drop fully, and you don't want the snare frame to hit the bottom of the snare basket here, right here. So what we're going to do here now is I'm going to put the 6.5 back on this snare stand. Oh, there we go. Make some room there. And carefully put that back into the snare basket, like so. All right, and we've got enough clearance there. Okay, so I will briefly, sorry about that, I will briefly play these and demo these for you. So here's the 6.5x14. point definition, loud, sensitive. Got a nice, deep, throaty sound to it. And then again, you can do minor adjustments. All you need to do, if you need more snare sound, you just bring up that thumb screw on the snare throw off and just bring it up a little more to the head so it takes a little of the buzz out. Great instruments. Now, you say to me, okay, what's the difference between metal and wood? Well, you know, there's some subtleties to them. And this is the Dynasonic that I built. And I'm quite happy the way this drum turned out. And it's a lot of fun to play. And let's get this on the stand here a little bit. And this is the solid maple shell. Now, the original wooden Dynasonics were a ply drum. And I'd say they would be a thick 6-ply with a 5-ply, thick 5-ply reinforcing ring. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys out there know the correct configuration on the wood Dynasonic, please educate me. In this case, this is a solid maple shell, and this is what this drum sounds like. I'll play the 2. This one's a little brighter, right? This one's a little darker, a little warmer. Now, of course, different heads will have different sounds and different timbres. So, with this one, we had the Martin Vintage Aquarian, which is a lot warmer. It takes on that calf-like characteristic. This one here, I had an Evans, single-coated Evans head, the G1 coated. And on this drum, we had a Remo coated Ambassador. So you're going to get different sounds out of these drums, and then of course tuning, the way you tune it. So again, here's the Dynasonic wood solid maple. 5x14 chrome over brass Dynasonic. And there you have it. So again, if you have a Rogers Dynasonic, take your time, set them up, okay? You have all the parts available to you today. You can find these parts on eBay. You can go to, just Google Rogers parts for Dynasonics. They're available to you. Again, thank you for watching and have fun.